This is from a national security hearing on brain control from the United States House of Representatives.
Guys, if your assessments here are correct, these are very covert weapons, aren't they?
That's correct.
Now, doing the questioning here is, and forgive me, I'm going to forget his name. It's, I believe, Marcus Luttrell's brother, former Navy SEAL, doing the questioning now in Congress.
There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things.
And you guys also said that these attacks are happening right here in this city. Is that correct?
I mean, there have been some that have gone public with respect to Washington, D.C.
I think it was Mr. Grozev said you spoke to a Russian agent who said that they believe that Americans are using these same weapons on them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Might that have something to do with part of the CIA's motive to cover up the existence of this tech and these weapons?
That is a very logical possibility.
Mr. Grozev, I want to follow up a little bit on the interactions you've had with Russian intelligence.
Now, again, of course, Russia, Trump, Orange Hitler.
About these AHIs. And Mr. Zaid, I want to ask, and this is a hypothetical, but I'm trying to understand why our government would try to block information sharing or conceal information that they have. And one thing that comes to mind is whether there's an operational risk to revealing any of the details of their investigation.
So here's the lesson. We can be pretty sure that we are being run by psychopaths. A lot of them. Not everyone in government's a psychopath, but we can look at these psychopathic actions. If you would like to bring God's word to bear, Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When the righteous increase, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. So what are the people doing? Now, this goes to mindset, as we're going to talk about this conspiracy theory that I think is happening. I believe it. I have no evidence that it's happening, but the toolkit exists. So why would a group of psychopaths not use the toolkit that exists? So Google is trying to buy their way out of an antitrust claim. This is from a great Twitter thread on this. It's linked in the show notes. This is the actual court document. Google has tendered a cashier's check payable to the United States for redacted, which is the maximum amount of damages the United States claims in this case, trebled, plus prejudgment interest accrued based on a hypothetical judgment date of June 30, 2024. It has, in fact, paid the United States every dollar the United States could conceivably hope to recover under the damages calculation of the United States' own expert. So they're trying to say, look, we'll just pay the damages. Why? Why? Because they don't want discovery. See, at the government level, there are people who are actually trying to do their jobs. That they're actually looking into Google. And there's bosses higher up going, what are you doing? You don't get like how important these guys are to us. No, I do, but I'm gonna go do my job. And this is proceeded. So in discovery, in an antitrust claim, do you know what could be found out? How in bed is Google with the government? Now think of the things that could be found out. Now we know that they're taking censorship orders. We know that. Here is the part of the toolkit as we start to expand and talk about this Techno-Media conspiracy theory. Here's what I think you would find. If you did a full-on discovery of antitrust, I think you would find that the United States intelligence services has used Google infrastructure to target content and ads at specific human beings. I know this can be done because back when I had a big data company, we did it. It was harder for us than it is now for them. I know that the intelligence services have this toolkit, and it's not even their own. It's ad tech. It's ad tech. Some of the things I think they would find would blow minds. We know that in January 6th, they were able to track down every 71-year-old grandma who happened to step into the Capitol and take a selfie. We know that. That's the system they used that can also be used for content. So we know these systems exist. We know the toolkits exist. We know Google does not want anyone looking under the hood, up to and including offering a check. We know that these companies worked hand in hand with the FBI, with the Department of Homeland Security, with the CDC, with the FDA, with the World Health Organization, taking direct orders to censor Americans and to censor media outlets, Hunter Biden's story and others. We've talked about mindset. We've talked about what we know they'll do. We talked about what we know they're doing. We've talked about Google's efforts to hide everything that they're doing, up to and including offering to pay the government off. Not offering to, literally saying, here's the check. Wired magazine ran an article that I think is one of the most important and overlooked articles in politics, culture, or just world events. It's how the Pentagon learned to use targeted ads to find its targets, including Vladimir Putin. So it's a long story of a guy who became very, very mobbed up in DC circles, became mobbed up in DC ad tech circles. And through a series of companies and companies he started on his own, he looked at the ad tech ecosystem. That's tech speak. They love saying ecosystem. In fact, if you're in tech and you don't hear ecosystem once a day, I think you get a really bad rash and you have to go home. And what's wrong with you? Why are you? I haven't heard ecosystem enough today, so I'm all like rashy and pussy. So he looked at the ad tech ecosystem. And here's what you can do in the ad tech ecosystem. You can purchase enough data on enough people and data points that you can figure out who's who and send them targeted ads. So the way this works is you buy a group of data, so you buy device IDs. Every device that's connecting to the internet has a device ID. You can buy the device ID. You can buy emails, phone numbers. You can buy addresses. You can buy places of employment. You can buy that all with apps. With apps, you can purchase data on where people travel. I mean, you think that app that gives you money back on gas, you think they're doing that to be nice? What's the business model? The business model is they track you. All the apps are doing this, and there are companies that just go out and siphon. They just take up a huge vacuum, and they suck all this data into their systems. Google is probably one of those companies. Google has enormous amounts of data on all of us. So they suck it into their systems, and then these companies are data brokers. Now, mind you, they didn't have a warrant to start tracking you to get down to knowing where you live and work, and they know where you live and work. How? Well, where are you during sleeping hours? Where are you during working hours? How do you get between the 2 points? All this stuff's triangulated up into who you are. But could they use that to figure out who you're traveling with? Sure. Sure they can. They just look at the patterns. So in the case of Vladimir Putin, they had acquired device IDs on his bodyguards. They did this by purchasing the data and then matching it up to a travel schedule. So just imagine this. There's the 5 key people around Vlad Putin. And they purchased tons of data from Russia located down into the Kremlin. So the data now, they triangulate it. They just squeeze it right down into the area around the Kremlin or wherever Vlad works. And from that, they're now doing device tracking. And they're looking at the patterns. Hey, look, here's 5 guys who every time Putin gives a public speech, they are with him. These devices are around Vlad wherever he gives a public speech. So now they test this theory. So let's say Putin is giving a speech in Stockholm, and it's announced in advance. They take that system and they test it and they say, okay, If we're right, at least 4 out of 5 of these devices should be with Vlad. So they test it. 5 out of 5. So who's the 6th person? It's Vlad. They did the same thing with Donald Trump. Same exact method. Could we track President Trump using this same exact method? So knowing that the toolkit includes the ability to track people, first find the people out of the global 9 billion or 7 billion people, we're going to find 5 of them. And with the 5th, add the 6th. That's a massive toolkit, isn't it? So in this antitrust case with Google, if you were actually to get in and do discovery, how much of this think you would find? How much of this do you think you would find? And who would be using it? So now the theory is this. All these systems exist. The mindset exists. We see these sociopathic tendencies at the top. All that's real. So we go back to the Clockwork Orange scenario. Why would they not use it to send propaganda content to young influencers, to old influencers, and just surround them with content that they know they're going to click on, they know they're going to watch, and just drive them down into that dopamine hole? You know the dopamine hole I'm talking about. The infinite scroll, the watch the next video, the I went to YouTube to look at a video and 6 hours later my wife's knocking on the bedroom door. Hey, are you in there? So why wouldn't they do it? Remember the Clockwork Orange scenario? Well, it's like, it's wrong. Why? Because it's like against God. They don't think it's wrong. From the top, the rigging of an election, bragging about it, sociopathically. Yeah, we rigged an election to save democracy. So let's dig now into how this would happen and my ultimate theory, which is the finding of influencers and then influencing the influencers. That phrase, influencing the influencers, that's Madison Avenue from 10 years ago. Let's piece this apart. On the topic of persuading the persuaders, influencing the influencers, with this toolkit that exists, it is an easy thing for the government to go from tracking influencers to working with Google and other content policing agencies, content service agencies, platforms, to guide specific videos at specific human beings, specific content at specific human beings. The same way they can block specific human beings from seeing content, they can assure that specific human beings are going to see some content time and time and time and time and time and time, and no, the video or the audio source did not glitch. Over and over again. All the toolkits exist. What exactly would stop them from doing this?